The ebony-skinned twins had embarked on a journey that would forever alter the course of their lives. They had decided to undergo a startling DNA examination, driven by a haunting curiosity that had shadowed them since their formative years. The moment the doctor scrutinized the results, his face blanched, and he exclaimed with an urgency that sent chills down their spines, "Get legal counsel immediately." If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell to avoid missing any videos. It was a Sunday afternoon, and the sun's golden rays filtered through the shutters of the small, shared apartment where Marcus and Malik Johnson resided. The 28-year-old African-American twins were seated in their humble living room, each enveloped in a storm of thoughts and emotions. Marcus, the elder by a mere 3 minutes, could not suppress his nervous energy. His fingers drummed relentlessly on the coffee table, and he repeatedly adjusted and readjusted the tie he intended to wear to court on Monday. The air was thick with tension, a palpable mix of anticipation and apprehension that seemed to weigh down the very atmosphere. Weeks earlier, they had taken the bold step of ordering a DNA test. This decision had not been made lightly. It was the culmination of years of whispered doubts and lingering questions about their origins, which had always been present but rarely voiced. The need for concrete answers had finally driven them to seek the truth, no matter how unsettling it might be. "Do you think the results will come today?" Marcus asked, his voice piercing the heavy silence that had settled over the room like a shroud. Malik, always the calmer of the two, tried to appear indifferent, but the tension in his eyes betrayed him. He shrugged, attempting to downplay the anxiety that gnawed at his insides. "Possibly, Doctor. Carter mentioned it would take about 2 weeks." As the minutes ticked by, the twins found themselves drowning in a sea of conflicting emotions. Marcus' mind raced with thoughts of what the results might reveal. He envisioned scenarios ranging from the mundane to the extraordinary, each one more intense than the last. Malik, on the other hand, tried to steady his thoughts, focusing on the rhythm of his breathing to keep the rising panic at bay. Their curiosity had been born out of a series of subtle yet persistent signs. As teenagers, they had noticed slight differences between themselves and their parents. There were whispers within the family, hushed conversations that abruptly ended when they entered the room. These fragments of doubt had festered over the years, growing into an insistent need to uncover the truth. The weight of their decision now pressed heavily upon them. They had ventured into uncharted territory, and there was no turning back. The DNA test results held the power to redefine their identities, to unravel the very fabric of their lives. The anticipation was excruciating, each passing moment amplifying the suspense. Marcus and Malik shared a bond that transcended mere sibling connection. Their experiences, their struggles, and their triumphs had intertwined their lives in ways that words could scarcely capture. Now, as they awaited the outcome of the DNA test, they clung to that bond, hoping it would be enough to carry them through whatever revelations awaited. The hours dragged on, each minute stretching into an eternity. The twins remained in the living room, their minds oscillating between hope and dread. They were on the brink of discovering a truth that could shatter their world or bring them a newfound sense of clarity. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, the doorbell rang. Marcus and Malik exchanged a tense glance, their hearts pounding in unison. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the moment that could change everything. Together they rose to their feet and approached the door, their steps heavy with the weight of expectation. The world outside seemed to fade away as they reached for the handle, bracing themselves for the truth that lay just beyond the threshold. At that moment, as if summoned by the mere mention of his name, the phone rang, its shrill tones slicing through the tension-laden air. The caller ID displayed the number from Dr. Carter's office. The brothers exchanged anxious glances before Marcus, with a trembling hand, answered. "Hello," his voice wavered slightly. "Marcus, this is Dr. Carter." The results of the DNA test are back. I need you and Malik to come to my office immediately. It's urgent." The gravity in the doctor's voice made Marcus's heart pound. "Has something happened, doctor?" There was a pregnant pause on the other end of the line. "We better discuss this in person. Please come as soon as possible." 15 minutes later, the twins found themselves seated in the sterile, dimly lit office of Dr. Carter, a middle-aged man with kind eyes partially obscured by thin-framed glasses. He watched them with an expression that mingled concern, apprehension, and a hint of guilt. "Marcus, Malik," he began, his voice steady but laden with gravity as he chose his words with deliberate care. "The results of the DNA test revealed something entirely unexpected, something that frankly took me by surprise and raised serious questions about the circumstances of your birth." The room seemed to close in around them, the air growing heavier with each word. Marcus and Malik exchanged a look of bewilderment and fear. The doctor's revelation had the potential to upend everything they thought they knew about themselves and their family. "What do you mean?" Dr. Malik's voice was barely a whisper, the question hanging in the air like a fragile, breakable thing. "Doctor." Carter took a deep breath, leaning forward with an earnest expression. "The DNA test shows that you two are not biologically related. It appears you come from entirely different genetic backgrounds." The shock hit them like a tidal wave, leaving them breathless and disoriented. Marcus felt the room spin as his mind struggled to process the doctor's words. How could this be? They had grown up together and shared everything, and yet the DNA test was suggesting an impossible truth. "But how is that possible?" Marcus stammered, his voice cracking under the strain of disbelief. "Doctor." Carter shook his head slowly. "I don't have all the answers, but this anomaly points to a possibility of a mix-up at birth or some other extraordinary circumstance. This is why I urged you to seek legal counsel. There are layers to this situation that need to be meticulously unraveled." The twins sat in stunned silence, their minds reeling from the revelation. The reality of their lives was being dismantled piece by piece, replaced by a void of uncertainty and unanswered questions. "Doctor." Carter continued, his tone softening with empathy. "I know this is overwhelming. You deserve to know the truth about your origins, and that journey begins here. We'll support you through every step of this process." The twins nodded numbly, their thoughts racing in 100 different directions. The world as they knew it had shifted dramatically, leaving them standing on the precipice of an unknown future. They had come seeking answers, and what they found were deeper mysteries that demanded courage and resilience to confront. As they left Dr. Carter's office, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that mirrored the uncertainty in their hearts. The journey ahead was fraught with challenges, but together they would face whatever truths awaited them, armed with their unbreakable bond and an unwavering determination to uncover the secrets of their past. Malik leaned forward, his posture brimming with loyalty and protectiveness. "What exactly are we dealing with here, Doctor?" "Doctor." Carter exhaled slowly, his expression somber. "Your genetic markers don't align with the records of your presumed biological parents. There's no match at all." The silence that enveloped the room was overwhelming. Marcus felt as if the ground had vanished beneath him, leaving him in free fall. Malik, however, was already mentally navigating the legal implications of this bombshell. "What does that mean exactly?" Malik asked, his voice taut with tension. The doctor removed his glasses, massaging the bridge of his nose wearily. "It means you are not biologically related to the people you have always believed to be your parents. And there's more. These medical records," he gestured to the files on his desk, "appear to have been falsified." Marcus finally found his voice, a mixture of confusion and fear. "Falsified? But how? Why?" "Doctor." Carter shook his head, his expression a blend of sympathy and frustration. I don't have all the answers, but this discovery raises serious questions about the circumstances of your birth and adoption. This is why my urgent advice is to get a lawyer immediately. Leaving Dr. Carter's office, the twins walked through their familiar neighborhood, now feeling like strangers in an alien world. Every passing face seemed to conceal secrets, and every building appeared to harbor hidden truths about their origins. We need to talk to Mom and Dad, Marcus finally said, his voice cracking with the weight of the realization. Malik nodded, his mind racing ahead. Yes, but first we need to find a lawyer. Someone impartial who can look at this objectively and help us unravel this mess. The reality of their situation was sinking in with every step. Their lives, which had seemed so certain and stable, were now clouded with uncertainty and doubt. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. As they continued down the street, Malik pulled out his phone, already searching for reputable family law attorneys in the area. Their home, once a sanctuary of comfort and familiarity, now felt foreign and unsettling. The walls that had witnessed their childhood laughter and tears now seemed to close in on them, filled with unspoken secrets. As they approached the door, Marcus hesitated, feeling the weight of the impending confrontation. I don't know how to face them, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Malik placed a reassuring hand on his brother's shoulder. We'll do it together, Marcus. Whatever the truth is, we'll face it head on. But we need to be prepared. Let's get the legal advice first, then we'll confront Mom and Dad with the facts. With a firm resolve, they stepped into their home, ready to embark on a journey that would uncover the hidden chapters of their lives. The path ahead was fraught with emotional landmines and potential heartbreak, but together they would seek the truth, no matter how painful it might be. That evening, after a fraught phone call to their adoptive parents demanding an urgent meeting, Marcus and Malik found themselves in the office of Sarah Goldstein, a seasoned lawyer specializing in family law. Her office, adorned with diplomas and cheerful family photos, offered a stark contrast to the storm of emotions swirling within the twins. Sarah Goldstein, with her sharp blue eyes fixed intently on them, began the conversation. Based on what you've described, it appears we're dealing with a case of irregular, potentially illegal adoption. The immediate priority is to obtain all records from the adoption agency that handled your case. Malik, momentarily drawing on his professional instincts, nodded despite his emotional turmoil. What if the agency refuses to cooperate? Sarah offered a smile that, despite its warmth, lacked true reassurance. If they refuse, we'll have no choice but to file a lawsuit. They will be compelled to produce the documents in court. The following days unfolded in a whirlwind of emotional upheaval and legal maneuvering. The meeting with their adoptive parents was heart-wrenching. Through tear-streaked faces and desperate pleas, their parents maintained their innocence, insisting that they had adopted Marcus and Malik in good faith through a reputable agency. We love you, their adoptive mother sobbed, clutching their hands with a desperation that spoke volumes. You are our children, no matter what that test says. For Marcus and Malik, these declarations were insufficient to quell the rising tide of doubt. Their memories of childhood, once cherished and innocent, now felt tainted by the shadow of betrayal and deceit. When they approached the adoption agency, they were met with a formidable wall of silence and bureaucratic obfuscation. All our files are confidential, came the cold, impersonal reply. We cannot release any information without a court order. True to her word, Sarah Goldstein proceeded to file a lawsuit, aiming to force the agency to disclose the records. The ensuing legal battle was grueling and fraught with frustration. Each court session revealed more about the tangled web of deceit, with new documents only deepening the mystery. It was during one particularly intense hearing that a significant breakthrough occurred. A former employee of the adoption agency, driven by a deep sense of guilt and a moral imperative to do the right thing, came forward with explosive information. This whistleblower's testimony would become a crucial turning point in the investigation, promising to unravel the secrets that had cast such a dark cloud over Marcus and Malik's lives. As they awaited the unfolding revelations, the brothers faced an uncertain future, their lives suspended between the old certainties of their childhood and the daunting new reality that lay ahead. Each day brought them closer to the truth, but the journey was far from over, and the path was fraught with challenges that demanded both resilience and courage. The agency was involved in a baby trafficking scheme, the former employee revealed, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and urgency. Children were taken from vulnerable mothers, often without their consent, and sold to families who could afford to pay. The courtroom fell into stunned silence as this devastating revelation landed like a bombshell. Marcus felt a sickening churn in his stomach, while Malik's fists clenched so tightly that his fingernails dug into his palms, leaving deep marks. As the full extent of the scheme began to unfold, it became evident that the Johnson twins case was merely the surface of a far-reaching criminal operation. The scope of the scandal was staggering, potentially involving dozens, if not hundreds, of families who had been deceived and wronged by this illicit network. The judge, a man whose stern demeanor was softened by eyes brimming with compassion, addressed Marcus and Malik with a voice heavy with restrained emotion at the end of the harrowing session. "Young people," he said, his words imbued with a profound sense of justice. "What has been done to you and countless others is a profound injustice that demands redress. This court will exert every effort to ensure that the truth is brought to light and that justice prevails." As Marcus and Malik exited the courthouse, they felt the immense weight of being at the center of a storm that threatened to upend not only their identities but also to expose a vast web of corruption and crime extending far beyond their own lives. "What do we do now?" Marcus asked, his voice barely more than a weary whisper, the enormity of their new reality weighing heavily on him. Malik turned to his brother, his gaze reflecting a potent mix of determination and apprehension. "We keep fighting for the truth, for justice, and for all the other families who might be in the same predicament as us." As they trudged home through the dimming twilight, the burden of their situation pressed heavily on their shoulders. Yet, amid the crushing weight of their new reality, a glimmer of hope persisted. This journey, though fraught with pain and uncertainty, held the promise of uncovering the truth about their origins and bringing to light a deeply flawed and corrupt system. The path ahead was daunting, but Marcus and Malik resolved to press on, driven by a resolute belief that their struggle could bring about meaningful change and justice for those affected by the scandal. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a breathtaking tapestry of orange and purple across the sky. For Marcus and Malik Johnson, it symbolized not just the end of a day, but the end of the life they had known, marking the start of a daunting voyage into uncharted territory, a journey fraught with challenges and transformative possibilities. Autumn had draped the streets of Boston in a cloak of vibrant reds and golds, yet for the twins, the season seemed to have drained the color from their world. The weeks since the earth-shattering revelation about their origins had been a whirlwind of emotional upheaval and unsettling discoveries, each day unearthing new layers of complexity that threatened the very core of their identities. On a crisp October afternoon, Marcus and Malik found themselves in Sarah Goldstein's office once more. The lawyer greeted them with a weary smile, her office a battlefield of legal documents spread across her mahogany desk, each sheet a testament to the ongoing struggle for truth and justice. "We have some significant updates," Sarah began, her eyes reflecting a blend of excitement and apprehension. "We've managed to trace some of your biological relatives." Marcus's heart skipped a beat, his pulse quickening with a mix of trepidation and anticipation. "Who are they?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, laden with the weight of hope and anxiety. Sarah carefully lifted a folder from her desk, opening it with deliberate precision. your maternal grandmother, Evelyn Thompson. She resides in a nursing home in Chicago." Malik's eyes widened, a complex cocktail of hope and apprehension etched on his face. "Does she know about us?" Sarah's expression was somber as she shook her head. "No, as far as we can determine, she is unaware of your existence. It appears she never knew that her daughter had twins." The revelation hit Marcus and Malik like a tidal wave. The impact is both overwhelming and profound. The knowledge that their biological grandmother had lived in ignorance of their existence was a bitter pill to swallow, yet it also sparked a flicker of hope. The potential for reconnecting with their blood relatives was a beacon of light amidst the shadowy uncertainties that had clouded their lives. As they absorbed the gravity of this news, the enormity of the journey ahead began to crystallize. The path to Chicago loomed as a monumental undertaking, fraught with emotional stakes and unanswered questions. Would Evelyn Thompson be willing to embrace this new chapter of her life, or would the revelation of her lost family bring its own set of complications? The twins left Sarah's office, their minds racing with the possibilities that lay before them. The journey to reconnect with their biological grandmother was fraught with potential for both heartache and healing. As the autumn leaves crunched beneath their feet, they were acutely aware of the significance of their next steps. The road ahead promised to be arduous and filled with emotional turbulence, but Marcus and Malik were resolved to face it with courage and resilience. The possibility of uncovering the remaining pieces of their identity and piecing together their fractured past offered a glimmer of hope, that, despite the challenges, their journey could lead to a new understanding of who they truly were and where they came from. The silence that enveloped the room was thick with unspoken emotions, an oppressive weight that settled heavily on Marcus and Malik. Marcus squeezed his eyes shut, desperately trying to conjure the image of a grandmother he had never known, a face that existed only in the distant realm of possibility. Meanwhile, Malik's mind raced with plans and strategies, each thought a step closer to finding answers. "We need to go to her," Malik declared with unwavering resolve. His voice cut through the heavy silence with a firmness that belied the turbulence within. "She might hold the key to all the answers we've been searching for." Sarah Goldstein nodded solemnly, but her eyes conveyed a note of caution. "There's something else you need to be aware of," she said gently, her voice tinged with sorrow. "Evelyn is very ill. The doctors don't believe she has much time left." The revelation hit the twins with the force of a gut-wrenching blow. The gravity of losing a connection they had only just discovered settling over them like a shroud. The thought of potentially losing Evelyn before they even had the chance to meet her was a bitter and heart-wrenching blow. "How long does she have?" Marcus asked, his voice cracking under the weight of his emotions, the words barely a whisper. Sarah's response was laden with empathy. "Weeks, perhaps even days," she said, her voice soft with compassion. "Her condition is deteriorating rapidly." That night, as they hurriedly packed for the unexpected trip to Chicago, the atmosphere in their apartment was suffused with a profound and heavy silence. The usual hum of daily life was replaced by the soft rustle of clothing being folded and the occasional weary sigh that seemed to echo the uncertainty and dread they both felt. Marcus sat on the edge of his bed, a half-folded shirt in his hands, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on his shoulders. He glanced over at Malik, who was methodically organizing their belongings, his face set in a mask of determination tinged with worry. "What are we going to tell her?" Marcus finally broke the silence, his voice laced with apprehension and vulnerability. His question hung in the air, fraught with the enormity of the task ahead. Malik paused for a moment, considering his brother's question with a deep, thoughtful frown. "We have to be honest," he replied after a pause, his voice steady but heavy with resolve. "We need to tell her who we are and what we've discovered. We owe her that much." The prospect of confronting their biological grandmother, revealing their identities, and navigating the complex emotions of such a meeting seemed daunting. Yet the urgency and importance of their quest were undeniable. The road to Chicago was not just a physical journey but an emotional one, filled with the potential for profound revelations and heartache. As they completed their preparations, the reality of their situation settled over them like a somber cloak. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but Marcus and Malik were driven by a shared determination to uncover the truth and forge a connection with the grandmother who might hold the final pieces of their fractured history. Malik paused his frantic packing, turning to face Marcus with a determined expression. The truth, he said firmly, his voice imbued with a profound sense of purpose. She deserves to know the truth, and we deserve it too. The morning flight to Chicago was a whirlwind of mixed emotions: nervous excitement, trepidation, and a sense of urgency. As the plane descended toward the sprawling city below, Marcus's gaze was fixed on the patchwork of streets and buildings, his heart racing with an overwhelming mix of anticipation and anxiety. Upon arrival, the nursing home was a tranquil oasis, its whitewashed walls and meticulously maintained gardens struggling to cling to the last warm hues of summer. The director, a middle-aged woman with a compassionate demeanor and kind eyes, met them at the entrance, offering a reassuring smile. "Evelyn is in her room," she informed them, her voice calm and soothing. "She has her good days and her bad days. Today appears to be one of her better days." Guided down a long, dimly lit corridor, the twins followed the director's lead, their footsteps echoing softly against the polished floor. When they finally reached Evelyn's room, the sight before them was both poignant and heartbreaking. The room was modest, filled with soft light from the window, and in the center lay a frail, delicate figure. Evelyn Thompson was nestled in a bed, her once vibrant white hair fanned out like a halo against the pillow. Her piercing blue eyes, though dimmed with age and illness, were alert as she looked up at the newcomers. "Mrs. Thompson," Marcus began, his voice wavering with a mix of reverence and fear. We believe we are your grandsons." The old woman's eyes widened in shock, her hand instinctively reaching to cover her mouth as if to stifle a gasp. "My grandson," she echoed, her voice frail yet unmistakably clear. Malik stepped forward, holding out a photograph of their mother, a young woman with a radiant smile, captured in a moment of youthful innocence. "This is our mother," he said gently, his voice imbued with both tenderness and solemnity. "Your daughter." As Evelyn's trembling hands took the photograph, tears welled up in her eyes, cascading down her wrinkled cheeks. "My sweet Emma," she murmured, her voice breaking with a flood of emotion. "I thought I lost you forever." The following hour was a profound and emotional exchange, as the twins and their grandmother shared stories and filled in the gaps of a narrative steeped in pain and heartache. Evelyn's voice, though weak, was filled with sorrow and regret as she recounted the painful details of her past. She revealed that Emma, her beloved daughter, had vanished from her life shortly after discovering she was pregnant. The cruel reality was that Emma had been a victim of a predatory adoption agency, one that preyed on vulnerable young mothers and manipulated them into giving up their children. Evelyn's revelations painted a picture of a mother's desperate search for her daughter, a search thwarted by deception and the shroud of secrecy that had surrounded the adoption process. Each word she spoke was a piece of a shattered puzzle, finally coming together to reveal the truth that had been obscured for so long. As the conversation drew to a close, Marcus and Malik were left with a profound sense of both closure and sorrow. They had uncovered the missing pieces of their history, but the weight of their grandmother's pain and the injustices of the past hung heavily in the air. Evelyn's frail form, lying in that quiet room, represented a living link to their past, a past marked by loss and the painful consequences of deceit. Yet within that room, amidst the tears and revelations, there was also a glimmer of connection, a bond forged through shared blood and rediscovered truth. "I searched for her," Evelyn said, her voice laden with sorrow. But despite my efforts, I never found her. I was unaware she had given birth to twins. Marcus and Malik absorbed Evelyn's words in solemn silence, each word a vital piece in the mosaic of their fractured identity, each syllable a precious revelation amidst a desert of uncertainty. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, melancholy shadows across the room, Marcus gently took Evelyn's frail hand in his own. "We will ensure that justice is served," he vowed softly, his voice imbued with a deep resolve. "For you, for our mother, and for all the families who have been wronged." Evelyn's face, etched with lines of age and hardship, softened into a smile, a bittersweet curve of hope and heartache. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "Thank you for finding me." As they prepared to depart, Evelyn grasped their hands with surprising strength, her frail fingers conveying a power that belied her weakened state. "Never forget where you come from," she said, her voice resonating with a wisdom forged through years of suffering and resilience. "And always fight for what is right." The twins left the nursing home with a sense of both completion and renewed determination. They had unearthed a fragment of their past, a bridge to a family they had never known existed. With this newfound connection came a profound sense of purpose, a commitment to unearth the truth and seek justice, not just for themselves, but for all who had been ensnared in the shadows of the past. As they walked back to their hotel, the city lights twinkling like distant stars in the night, Marcus and Malik felt the weight of their journey slightly lifted. For the first time in weeks, a faint glimmer of hope flickered within them, a hope that united, they could confront and overcome the trials that lay ahead. However, their brief moment of respite was shattered when Malik's phone buzzed with a worried text message. "You need to see this. Turn on the TV, channel 5. With apprehensive expressions, Marcus and Malik turned on the television. Their eyes widened in disbelief as they saw a reporter standing outside Boston High School, where Marcus taught. The headline flashed across the screen: "Professor Marcus Johnson implicated in illegal adoption scandal." The report continued, alleging that Marcus might have secured his teaching position under dubious circumstances, with ongoing investigations into the authenticity of his credentials. The words on the screen seemed to mock their recent struggles, adding a new layer of crisis to their already tumultuous lives. Marcus, feeling a wave of nausea wash over him, turned off the TV with trembling hands. "This can't be happening," he muttered, his voice thick with despair as he sank onto the sofa. Malik, sensing his brother's distress, placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We'll face this together, Marcus," he said firmly, his voice a steady anchor amidst the chaos. "No matter what comes our way, we'll confront it side by side." In the weeks that followed the seismic revelations about their origins, Marcus and Malik Johnson found their lives upended by an emotional and logistical whirlwind. The unexpected turbulence began with Marcus being placed on administrative leave from his teaching position at Boston High School. The school's administration, spurred by the growing scandal and the scrutiny from media outlets, decided it was prudent to suspend Marcus until a thorough investigation could be conducted. The sudden halt in his career left Marcus grappling with feelings of bewilderment and frustration. The identity he had built as a dedicated educator now felt precarious, overshadowed by the specter of scandal and suspicion. Malik, who had stepped away from his job at the law firm to focus on unraveling the complex web of their origins, was similarly consumed by the emotional and practical demands of their situation. His days were filled with meetings with lawyers, reviewing documents, and navigating the intricate maze of legal challenges that had emerged. Each discovery seemed to bring more questions than answers, further entrenching them in a cycle of uncertainty. Amidst this personal turmoil, an unexpected development began to shift the focus of their plight. What initially began as local news stories and sensationalist media coverage soon captured the attention of adoption support groups, children's rights activists, and even national news outlets. The story of the Johnson twins, once confined to their private anguish, had become a symbol of a larger issue plaguing the adoption system. One crisp October afternoon, Marcus sought a brief respite from the emotional strain by taking a solitary walk through his neighborhood. The familiar streets, once a source of comfort, now felt alien as he navigated the landscape of his disrupted life. As he approached the town hall, he was taken aback by a sight that was both jarring and profoundly moving. A large crowd had gathered in front of the building, holding up a plethora of placards and banners. The air was filled with the sound of voices chanting slogans like "Justice for the Johnson brothers, transparency in adoptions now, and everyone deserves to know their origins." Marcus stood still for a moment, his heart racing as he absorbed the scene before him. The sight of so many people rallying behind their cause was overwhelming. It was as if the collective energy of the crowd was providing a counterbalance to the crushing weight of their struggles. A young woman with a compassionate demeanor approached Marcus, offering him a pamphlet. "We're organizing a support group for people who have been through similar situations," she explained, her voice gentle and reassuring. "This is a space for people to share their stories, find support, and advocate for change. You're not alone in this fight." The unexpected kindness and solidarity struck a chord with Marcus. That evening, as he and Malik regrouped at their apartment, Marcus shared the day's events with his brother. The brothers, who had previously felt isolated and overwhelmed by the enormity of their situation, were now confronted with the reality that their story had touched a broader community. The idea of being at the center of a larger movement was both daunting and exhilarating. As they discussed the newfound support and media attention, a sense of cautious optimism began to take root. Malik, ever the strategist, recognized the potential for leveraging this support to effect systemic change. "We need to channel this energy into something productive," he said, his eyes reflecting a mix of determination and hope. "If we can harness this momentum, we might be able to push for real reform in the adoption system." The brothers began to see their struggle not just as a personal battle, but as part of a larger fight for justice. They realized that their quest for answers about their origins could contribute to addressing broader issues within the adoption system. The idea of advocating for transparency and reform, and of helping others who might be in similar situations, provided a renewed sense of purpose. Over the next few days, they engaged with various advocacy groups and activists who were rallying around their cause. The support network that had begun to form around them was diverse and passionate, comprising individuals and organizations dedicated to reforming adoption practices and supporting those affected by similar injustices. As Marcus and Malik immersed themselves in this new phase of their journey, they began to recognize the profound impact their story was having. They were not just fighting for their truth, but were also becoming catalysts for change within a flawed system. The road ahead was still fraught with challenges, but the brothers now faced it with a renewed sense of hope and solidarity. The weight of their struggle was balanced by the knowledge that their fight could lead to meaningful reform and justice for countless others. The journey that had begun with the revelation of their shocking origins had now evolved into a broader movement for change. As they continued to navigate the complexities of their case, Marcus and Malik found solace in the support of their growing community and in the knowledge that their efforts were contributing to a larger cause. Together, they were not only seeking answers about their past, but also working to ensure that the future held more transparency, fairness, and justice for all. "It's incredible," Malik reflected, leafing through the flyer handed to him at one of the support group meetings. "How many other people must be going through the same thing as us?" The realization that they were part of a larger community of people with similar experiences brought a new perspective to the Johnson brothers. The support network they were discovering was more than just a lifeline. It was a powerful reminder that their struggle was part of a broader fight for justice and transparency in the adoption system. The brothers began to immerse themselves in the support group activities. They attended meetings regularly, where they shared their experiences and listened to the stories of others who were also in search of their origins. Each story was a testament to the systemic issues within the adoption industry and the personal impact on those affected. Marcus and Malik found solace in these gatherings, where the shared experiences created a sense of camaraderie and mutual understanding. It was during one particularly poignant meeting that Marcus faced one of his most profound internal struggles. Standing before a group of strangers who had quickly become allies, he took a deep breath and began to speak. "All my life, I've been proud of my African American heritage," he confessed, his voice trembling slightly. "I've studied our history, our culture. I've taught about the struggles and achievements of our people. And now, I don't know who I am anymore." The room fell silent, the weight of Marcus's words resonating deeply with those present. An elderly woman, her face lined with years of wisdom and compassion, reached out and gently took Marcus's hand. Her touch was reassuring, a silent promise of understanding. "My dear," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of experience, "your identity is not defined by your DNA alone. It is formed by your experiences, your struggles, and your love. You are no less authentic for not knowing all the pieces of your puzzle." The woman's words struck a chord with Marcus. He felt a mixture of relief and revelation as her compassionate insight began to reshape his understanding of identity. Over the following days, the sentiment of her advice lingered in his mind, gradually shifting his perspective. H started to view his journey not as a negation of his past, but as an expansion of his identity. Embracing this new facet of his life, Marcus began to reconcile his heritage with the newfound knowledge of his origins. Malik, on the other hand, channeled his energy into activism and reform. Recognizing the opportunity to turn their struggle into a catalyst for broader change, he reached out to civil rights lawyers and advocacy groups. He began working on initiatives to amend adoption laws, aiming to introduce measures that would ensure greater transparency and protection for children and families involved in the adoption process. His efforts were focused on several key areas, demanding stricter regulations for adoption agencies, advocating for mandatory disclosure of adoption records, and pushing for support systems for adoptees searching for their biological families. Malik's determination to address these systemic issues was fueled by a deep sense of purpose and a desire to prevent others from enduring similar hardships. The brothers' work began to attract attention from media outlets, advocacy groups, and policymakers. Their story, once a personal tragedy, was now becoming a powerful example of the need for reform. Marcus and Malik found themselves not only advocating for their rights but also becoming voices for countless others who had been affected by similar injustices. Their activism also led to collaborations with various organizations dedicated to improving the adoption system. They participated in conferences, gave interviews, and engaged with lawmakers to push for legislative changes. Through their efforts, they were able to shed light on the dark corners of the adoption industry and drive meaningful conversations about reform. Despite the challenges and setbacks, Marcus and Malik remained resolute. Their journey had transformed into a larger mission, one that sought to bring justice, transparency, and support to those affected by adoption-related issues. As they continued their advocacy work, they were buoyed by the support of their growing community and the knowledge that their struggle was contributing to a more equitable system. In their private moments, Marcus and Malik reflected on the remarkable journey they had undertaken. What began as a personal quest for identity and truth had evolved into a movement for change. The road ahead remained uncertain, but with each step they took, they were not only uncovering their past but also paving the way for a brighter, more transparent future for others. Their story had become a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of collective action in the face of adversity. As winter gradually gave way to spring, the Johnson brothers found their lives transformed by the burgeoning movement surrounding their case. Marcus and Malik had become symbols of a larger struggle for justice and transparency, their journey resonating with many who had been silently grappling with similar issues. The media coverage intensified, and with it came an outpouring of support from various quarters. Journalists, activists, and politicians alike began to view their story as a critical example of systemic flaws within the adoption industry. One evening, as the brothers sat together in their living room, the television screen flickered with the latest news report about their case. The anchor's voice, filled with gravity, described how Marcus and Malik had become the face of a nationwide call for reform. Malik, his eyes alight with a new resolve, turned to Marcus. "Do you realize what's happening, Marcus? Our story, it's not just ours anymore. We're giving a voice to so many other people who have gone through this in silence." Marcus, his heart swelling with a complex mix of pride and responsibility, nodded in agreement. "It's scary, but at the same time, I feel like we're finally making a difference." The enormity of their situation was beginning to sink in, and the weight of their new role was both exhilarating and daunting. The transition from winter to spring was symbolic of the changes in their lives. The once stark and challenging winter had given way to the renewal and hope that spring represented. As blossoms began to appear and the city of Boston started to thaw from its cold embrace, Marcus and Malik prepared for a new chapter in their fight for justice. Their days were now filled with interviews, meetings with legislators, and collaborations with advocacy groups. They met with lawmakers to push for legislative changes aimed at increasing transparency and accountability within the adoption system. They spoke at rallies, sharing their story to galvanize public support and draw attention to the plight of others affected by similar injustices. Their involvement with various organizations broadened their reach, amplifying their message across the country. Despite the growing support and the progress they were making, there were still many challenges ahead. The investigation into their case continued, with new revelations surfacing almost daily. The complexity of the web of corruption they were unraveling seemed almost endless, but Marcus and Malik remained undeterred. They found strength in their community, in each other, and in the knowledge that their fight was about more than just their quest for truth. Spring brought with it a series of revelations that would prove pivotal in their journey. Documents uncovered by investigative journalists revealed new details about the illegal adoption practices, implicating more individuals and organizations than initially thought. These revelations added fuel to the movement and heightened the urgency for reform. As they navigated this tumultuous period, Marcus and Malik remained grounded by their shared sense of purpose. They understood that their quest for justice was not just about uncovering their past, but about ensuring that future generations would not suffer the same injustices. Their commitment to the cause grew stronger with each passing day, and they continued to draw inspiration from the support of their community and the resilience of those they met along the way. The spring of Boston was a season of hope and renewal, mirroring the brothers' journey. As flowers bloomed and the city came alive with vibrant colors, Marcus and Malik embraced the new opportunities that arose. They continued to work tirelessly, their efforts bringing them closer to their goal of transforming the adoption system and ensuring that every child and family received the transparency and justice they deserved. No matter what challenges lay ahead, Marcus and Malik were resolved to face them together. Their bond, strengthened by their shared experiences and the support of a growing movement, was their greatest asset. With each step forward, they were not only uncovering the truth about their origins, but also paving the way for a more just and transparent future for all those affected by the hidden flaws within the adoption system. Sarah's words reverberated in the room, the gravity of the situation sinking in deeply for Marcus and Malik. The magnitude of the scandal they were about to confront was overwhelming. Marcus's mind raced as he tried to process the implications of Sarah's revelations. The agency's web of deceit extended far beyond its own story, touching countless lives and erasing identities. Malik, still at the window, turned back to face Sarah with a mixture of frustration and resolve. "So what's our next step?" How do we make sure this doesn't get buried like so many other scandals? Sarah's eyes met Malik's with a determined glint. We need to take this to the public and the authorities. The media is already on our side, but we need to work with law enforcement and ensure that the evidence is solid and undeniable. Marcus shifted in his chair, feeling a new surge of determination. And what about the families affected? How can we support them? Sarah nodded, appreciating the focus on the larger picture. We're working with several advocacy groups to help locate and support the other victims. Our immediate goal is to use the evidence to push for a full-scale investigation and ensure that those responsible are held accountable. As Sarah outlined the next steps, the brothers listened intently. The plan involved a coordinated effort to publicize the findings, work with investigative journalists, and push for legislative reforms to prevent future abuses. The enormity of the task ahead was daunting, but the brothers felt a renewed sense of purpose. They knew their journey was far from over, but they were no longer alone in their fight. After the meeting, Marcus and Malik left Sarah's office with a new sense of urgency. The sunny April morning seemed to mock the gravity of their mission, but it also symbolized the hope they clung to. As they walked down the bustling city streets, they talked about their next moves. Malik's voice was resolute. We need to be prepared for the backlash. This kind of exposure is going to ruffle a lot of feathers. Marcus nodded, his expression serious. I know, but we have to stay focused on the goal. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore, we're fighting for all those who've been wronged. In the following weeks, the Johnson brothers became a focal point in the media. Their story was broadcast nationwide, sparking outrage and sympathy. News outlets covered every detail of the scandal, and investigative reporters worked alongside them to uncover more about the agency's practices. The public's reaction was swift and passionate, with many rallying behind the cause. Marcus and Malik spent their days attending press conferences, meeting with legislators, and participating in interviews. They met with families who had been affected by the scandal, offering support and sharing their platform to amplify their voices. The sheer scale of the issue was staggering, and the emotional toll was significant, but the brothers found strength in their shared mission and the growing support from the community. As spring advanced, the movement they had sparked gained momentum. Public pressure led to new investigations and hearings. The adoption agency's executives were called to testify, and their corruption was laid bare for all to see. The brothers' persistence was making a difference, and the cracks in the system were beginning to widen. Despite the progress, there were still many obstacles to overcome. The legal battles were complex, and some tried to discredit the findings or undermine the movement. The brothers had to navigate these challenges carefully, balancing their personal lives with their public roles. One evening, as they reviewed new documents and evidence, Malik looked at Marcus with a tired but hopeful smile. We're making real progress, aren't we? Marcus, his gaze fixed on the papers before him, nodded. We are. It's a long road, but every step we take is bringing us closer to justice. The days continued to blur into one another, a relentless cycle of work, advocacy, and personal reflection. But through it all, Marcus and Malik remained steadfast, driven by the belief that their efforts would lead to meaningful change. Spring's arrival had indeed brought renewal, not just in the natural world but in the brothers' own lives. The warmth of the season seemed to mirror the hope they felt as they faced the future together, determined to see their mission through to the end. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but with each other and their growing network of supporters, they were ready to confront whatever lay in wait. Marcus's eyes widened as he read the note. What does resistant patient mean? And what are these extra measures? Malik's brow furrowed as he studied the document. It could imply that there were complications or issues with her case. It might have been a euphemism for something more sinister. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. This could be a crucial piece of evidence. It might explain why our mother was targeted by the agency. But it also raises more questions. What kind of extra measures are they talking about? The brothers knew they needed to follow up on this lead immediately. They contacted Sarah, who agreed to meet with them to review the new evidence. That evening, as the three of them gathered in Sarah's office, Marcus and Malik presented the medical record. Sarah examined the document closely. This note is troubling. It suggests that there were concerns or abnormalities in your mother's case that required special handling. It's possible that the agency exploited these concerns for their benefit. She paused, looking up at the brothers. We need to investigate further. This document could be a key to understanding how the agency manipulated vulnerable individuals. It might also help us identify other victims who were treated similarly. The next steps were clear. Sarah arranged for the records to be verified and contacted medical professionals who might be able to shed light on the meaning of the note. Meanwhile, Marcus and Malik reached out to other families who had been affected, hoping to find similar documentation or evidence of manipulation. The process was slow and painstaking, but every piece of evidence uncovered brought the brothers closer to understanding the full extent of the agency's corruption. They met with more former employees who revealed disturbing details about the agency's practices. They also spoke with medical experts who confirmed that the language used in the records suggested unethical and potentially illegal actions taken against their mother and others. As the investigation continued, the Johnson brothers began to feel the weight of their mission more acutely. The emotional toll was significant as they relived their mother's suffering through each new piece of evidence. However, they also felt a growing sense of resolve, knowing that their efforts were exposing a deeply entrenched system of injustice. One evening, while they were reviewing the latest findings, Malik looked at Marcus with a mixture of exhaustion and hope. We're getting closer, Marcus. Each document, each testimony, it's all pointing towards the same conclusion. We're uncovering the truth. Marcus nodded, his expression weary but determined. I know. It's just hard to think about everything that happened to our mother and so many others. But we have to keep going. We owe it to them. As spring turned into summer, the momentum of their investigation began to shift public perception. Media coverage intensified, and the case became a focal point for discussions about adoption reform and ethical practices. The Johnson brothers' story had captured the nation's attention, and their advocacy for justice was starting to make a tangible impact. The efforts of Marcus, Malik, and their support network led to a series of high-profile hearings and investigations. The adoption agency's executives were put on trial, and the extent of their criminal activities was exposed. Families affected by the scandal began to come forward, sharing their stories and demanding accountability. Amid this whirlwind, Marcus and Malik found solace in the small victories and the support they received from the community. They attended support groups, offered counseling to affected families, and continued to work with lawmakers to push for comprehensive reforms in the adoption system. One summer evening, as they sat on the steps of their apartment building, looking out at the city skyline, Malik turned to Marcus. Look at how far we've come. It's been a long and difficult journey, but we've made a difference. Marcus smiled, a mixture of pride and exhaustion evident in his eyes. We have, and we're not done yet. There's still so much work to be done, but we've shown that one voice, even when it starts as a whisper, can become a roar for change. The Johnson brothers knew that their journey was far from over. They had made significant progress, but the fight for justice and reform was ongoing. However, they faced the future with a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to ensuring that the truth was revealed and that the system was changed for the better. As they watched the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, they felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had uncovered the truth, confronted the injustices of the past, and sparked a movement for change. As they continued their work, They carried with them the hope that their efforts would bring about lasting and meaningful change for all those affected by the adoption scandal. The revelation from Eleanor was both a painful and illuminating moment for the Johnson brothers. As the elderly nurse recounted her experiences, Marcus and Malik were struck by the gravity of what had been done to their mother and countless others. "I remember her desperation," Eleanor continued, her voice trembling. "Sarah Thompson had a fierce will. She wanted to keep her babies, but the agency was relentless. They had a system, and they would stop at nothing to break the mothers who tried to resist." Marcus's eyes were filled with tears, his heart aching for the mother he had never known but now felt a deep connection to. "What did they do to her?" he asked softly. Eleanor took a deep breath. "They used every tactic they could think of. They isolated her, manipulated her into signing papers under duress, and they made sure she was overwhelmed and powerless. They knew she was a vulnerable target and used that to their advantage." Malik clenched his fists, his anger palpable. "This is monstrous. We need to make sure this information gets out. People need to know the truth." Eleanor nodded in agreement. "I can provide documentation, names of complicit colleagues, and details about the practices I witnessed. But you need to be cautious. The people involved are powerful and have a lot to lose." The brothers thanked Eleanor for her bravery and promised to take her information seriously. They immediately contacted Sarah Goldstein to share the new evidence and plan their next steps. Sarah reviewed the documents and testimonies Eleanor had provided, her face a mix of determination and concern. "This is crucial evidence," she said. "It supports everything we've been uncovering and adds new layers to the case. We need to use this to press forward and expose the full extent of the corruption." The momentum of the case was gaining unprecedented traction. As the media coverage expanded, the Johnson brothers were invited to speak on talk shows, participate in interviews, and advocate for policy changes. Their story resonated with a wide audience, and more people began to come forward with their own experiences. The movement for justice and reform grew stronger with each passing day. Amid this whirlwind, Marcus and Malik found solace in their shared purpose. They attended rallies, spoke at conferences, and worked tirelessly to ensure that the voices of the affected families were heard. The emotional toll was significant, but the support from the community and their newfound allies provided strength and encouragement. One evening, as they reviewed a new batch of evidence and media reports, Malik turned to Marcus with a reflective expression. "Do you remember when we first started this journey? We were so lost, so unsure of what we would find. Look at where we are now." Marcus nodded, a sense of pride and resolve evident in his demeanor. "It's been an incredible journey. We've uncovered so much and brought so many people together. But it's not over yet. We have to keep pushing for justice, for transparency, and for the reforms that are needed." The brothers knew that their work was far from finished. The fight for justice was ongoing, and there were still many battles to be fought. However, they faced the future with renewed hope and a deep commitment to their cause. As summer progressed, the case continued to unfold, revealing more details about the adoption agency's corrupt practices. Legal proceedings were set in motion, and public pressure forced policymakers to address the flaws in the adoption system. The Johnson brothers remained at the forefront of the movement, using their platform to advocate for meaningful change. They continued to work with lawmakers, support advocacy groups, and offer a voice to those who had been silenced for too long. One day, as Marcus and Malik stood together at a rally for adoption reform, they looked out at the sea of supporters and felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Their journey had been arduous, filled with moments of pain and doubt. But they had persevered, driven by a shared sense of purpose and a commitment to making a difference. In the end, the Johnson brothers' story was not just about their quest for truth. It was about the power of resilience, the importance of standing up for what is right, and the impact that a determined few can have on the world. As they continued their work, they knew that their efforts had sparked a change that would ripple through the lives of many, bringing hope and justice to those who had long been denied. As summer fully embraced the city, the Johnson brothers' case reached its long-awaited conclusion in court. The courtroom was packed with reporters, families, and advocates, all eager to witness the outcome of a scandal that had gripped the nation. The air was thick with anticipation as Sarah Goldstein, Marcus, and Malik prepared to present their final arguments. The trial was a revelation of systemic corruption and deceit. Evidence of the adoption agency's criminal activities was meticulously laid out: forged documents, testimonies from coerced mothers, and the systematic destruction of records. Witnesses, including Eleanor the nurse, provided powerful accounts that painted a harrowing picture of the agency's practices. The media coverage was relentless, capturing every moment of the trial. News outlets broadcast live reports, and social media was abuzz with updates. Public sentiment was overwhelmingly in favor of justice, with rallies and petitions demanding accountability and reform. When the verdict was finally announced, it was met with a wave of relief and jubilation. The adoption agency was dissolved, its leaders were sentenced to prison, and new, stringent regulations were introduced to ensure greater oversight and protection in the adoption process. The trial had not only exposed the truth, but it also sparked a broader reform movement. In the aftermath, Marcus and Malik took a moment to reflect on their journey. They had endured months of public scrutiny, legal battles, and personal revelations. Yet through it all, they had found something invaluable: justice for themselves and countless others affected by the scandal. They had also discovered a new purpose and a deeper connection with each other. One serene evening, as they sat on the porch of their apartment, the sun dipping below the horizon, Malik broke the comfortable silence. "You know, Marcus, when we started this journey, I had no idea what we were getting into. But look at us now." Marcus smiled, his eyes reflecting the fading light. "We did more than just uncover a scandal. We fought for something bigger. We gave a voice to those who had been silenced and made sure that future generations will be protected." Malik nodded thoughtfully. "And we found a lot about ourselves along the way. We discovered strength we didn't know we had, and a bond that's grown even stronger." The brothers sat together, their hearts heavy yet uplifted. They knew their work was far from finished. The quest for personal answers about their origins and their mother continued, and they remained committed to supporting the broader movement for adoption reform. But they faced the future with renewed hope and determination, buoyed by their shared accomplishments and the knowledge that they had made a significant impact. As the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, Marcus and Malik understood that their journey had transformed them in ways they could never have imagined. They had found justice, forged new paths, and deepened their connection to each other and to the cause they had championed. Together, they embraced the summer night, knowing that while their past remained a mystery, their present was defined by courage, purpose, and the unwavering strength of their brotherly bond. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, the Johnson brothers embraced the new chapter in their lives, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. The warmth of the evening air was a gentle reminder of the journey they had endured and the path they had forged. Sitting on their porch, with the city lights beginning to flicker in the distance, Marcus and Malik felt a profound sense of peace and accomplishment. The trials they had faced, both in the courtroom and within themselves, had brought them closer and given them a renewed sense of purpose. They knew their quest for personal answers was far from over. There were still questions about their origins and their mother's story that remained unanswered. But now, with the weight of their legal battle behind them and a community of supporters standing with them, they felt more prepared than ever to continue their journey. Marcus glanced at Malik, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You know, Malik, this whole experience has changed us. We went from searching for answers to becoming a beacon of hope for others." Malik nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. It's been an incredible journey. We've not only uncovered the truth but also found a purpose beyond ourselves. I never imagined our story would resonate so deeply with so many people. The brothers shared a moment of reflection, their thoughts filled with the faces of those they had met along the way, families torn apart, adoptees searching for their roots, and the countless individuals who had supported them in their fight for justice. As the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, they felt a renewed sense of optimism. They were no longer just two individuals grappling with their past, they were part of a larger movement for change, advocating for transparency and fairness in adoption practices. With the night settling in, they made a silent pact to continue their work, to seek out the remaining answers, and to honor the memory of their mother and all those affected by the scandal. The journey ahead might be filled with challenges, but they were ready to face them head-on. Together, Marcus and Malik stood up from their porch, their hearts lighter and their spirits lifted. The future was uncertain, but they knew that with their bond unbreakable and their purpose clear, they could overcome any obstacle that came their way. As they walked back inside, the last light of day giving way to the comforting embrace of night, they looked forward to the new chapter in their lives, confident in the knowledge that they would face whatever came next together. As we come to the end of this powerful journey with the Johnson brothers, we hope you found inspiration in their remarkable quest for truth and justice. Their story is a testament to resilience, the pursuit of answers, and the strength of family bonds. Reflecting on their experiences, what have you learned so far? We'd love to hear from you. What is one key takeaway from this story that you plan to bring into your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and found it meaningful, please leave your comments, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support helps us continue to bring you content that informs and inspires. Thank you for watching, and remember, every challenge is an opportunity for growth. See you in the next video.